Yeah, overall, for a debut card of a 7-year, multi-billion dollar media deal, the moment that the UFC, claims to level up, slight improvement on production, insane overload in commercials. The card is headlined by a guy who said publicly that he didn't make a dollar more than he will had prior to this deal. And it's not a footnote either. Like, that is the entire story about this whole event and this whole new era. It's just, yeah, the if the biggest television deal in the history of the sport begins with its main event fighter telling you that the money didn't reach him, then whatever this future is not being built for the people inside the cage, the people watching it. It's being built for very few who build their tech empires off of the speculation of these types of things. Because the UFC wants you to believe that this Paramount deal is progress, more exposure, more eyeballs, more stability. But again, like, stability for who? Justin Gaethje is headlining this card. He did exactly what fighters are never supposed to do. He said the quiet part out loud. He said that despite the massive new deal that they got, despite this being the first card of the new era, his pay did not change from his last like major large fight. Not a bump, not a bonus bump, not a back end adjustment, nothing. Dana White responded the way that these types of institutions always do. He said that the money was offered, and simply Gaethje didn't answer. He said that there was other options, and there's future opportunities. But what he doesn't explain is how the system justifies itself at this point, because it's not about one negotiation. It's not. It's a structure, and it's a structure where the people generating the value have no visibility into how the value is being distributed, and what they're getting is meager, right? Like, fighters are told that the deal is historic, that they're told that they're going to benefit massively, and they're not shown how. If a fighter headlining this symbolic launch of a 7-year, $7 billion deal cannot see the upside, then the upside is not meant to be seen by the fighters. And even if you're not even if you don't care about the UFC, like, the reason that this kind of shit matters, it's a new era in just like sports entertainment, in sports as and just as a commodity, as a part of like propaganda, as statecraft, etc. Remember, we had pay-per-view, and that's what this deal is killing, essentially, right? The WWE killed it by creating their WWE network and then making it so that, if you bought the network, you got the pay-per-views as well. And now this. So really, and especially with like the mass capitalization of boxing, with the biggest deals, the biggest fights being on like Netflix, the pay-per-view era is gone. And pay-per-view was ugly. It was, it was inconsistent. It was raw, but it did one thing that the UFC absolutely hated, and that was it gave them leverage, right? Because pay-per-view meant the stars could point to a number and say, this many people paid because of me. It created like an actual paper trail. It created an argument. It created a way for fighters, especially at the top, to force their way into profits. And this streaming deal, this non-pay-per-view streaming deal with just higher, more commercialized, essentially, it turns revenue into a flat subscription pool, and it turns any type of market upside of a fighter into predictability. It turns fighters into content units to justify a monthly fee, not participants in a successful organization, in a successful league, right? Like, this deal does not eliminate pay-per-view to help the fans. It eliminates pay-per-view to eliminate bargaining power for fighters. That is why Conor McGregor immediately started questioning contracts and stating that the new Paramount deal nullified his previous deal. And it's not because he's a supporter of the rights of fighters, right? It's just because he is the biggest character, the biggest person that has been made of that previous era, and that era is dying now. And that model that gave him all that leverage is now dead. Like it no longer exists. Under streaming, there is no big fight. Like you know what I mean. There is no fight night Mike, right? Like there's no back end explosion for these headliners, right? There's only what the UFC decides to pay them, and that's it, right?